Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon in almost 23 degrees of Gemini, which will be exact on June 13th at 3:43 p.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, or 8:43 p.m. London time. Now, as best as you can with every new moon, go within at the time of the new moon, either right before or right after, and get really quiet. This is an introverted time, and if you're getting any intuitive messages, use these to include them in your new moon intentions for the month. And I will talk about the very best and most potent time to set your new moon intentions towards the end of this video, so stay tuned, okay? Now, not only is this new moon the beginning of a new moon cycle, it's also a supermoon. And for those of you who've been watching my videos for a while, you know that the supermoons occur when a moon is really in close distance to the Earth during a new moon or a full moon. And so therefore, the energy of the moon is more powerful at the time because it's closer to the Earth. And so this generates greater gravitational and electromagnetic forces. And therefore, it also increases the effects that this lunation has on our physical, mental, and emotional bodies. So what that means is that we really, for the time of this new moon, we're getting the opportunity to have greater shifts in consciousness. So this is an important new moon that we're entering, right? There's also going to be two station planets at the time of the new moon. Neptune and Mars are going to be slowing down, preparing for their retrograde phases. And whenever there's a station phase, these planets are more exalted. And so the vibration of both of these planets will spin louder, and something will be in our face around these energies for the next month. And so that requires that we pay attention to what's going on there. It requires that we gain more awareness around these energies. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But first, I want to take a look at the Gemini energy and what that means for this super new moon. Now, the new moon in Gemini, we're usually asked to connect to others and share our little hearts out for the next 4 weeks. Gemini is the archetype of curiosity, communication of all forms, and mental connections. So it really represents the development of language and intelligence in our early formative years. As well as our ability to adapt and relate to our immediate environment, right? So flexibility is something that we learn with Gemini. Now, this is a very busy energy that's focused on collecting information. And so we're invited to take a look at our mental programming and conditioned mind to see what needs to go and what new thought structures we might want to create. Because thoughts are simply just things that, move through us. But when we get attached to a particular set of thoughts, that can sometimes create some difficulties and some suffering in our lives. Now, Gemini is asking us to stay in movement, right? So Gemini is really about the movement of energy, right? Whereas when we get attached to certain thoughts, then we're no longer in movement, right? So it's sort of like contrary to what the Gemini energy wants us to do. So we want to think about all that we need to know in order to move forward, and we want to share ourselves and connect with others. So here's some questions you can ask yourself for this new moon. If my mind needed something to feel safe with others, what might that something be? And what motivates me to learn? And when I talk to myself about nurturing myself, what do I often say to myself? And what do I say to myself about receiving from others? Or how about receiving from life itself? Right? So these are really important questions. And the reason why we're asking these questions in this particular way is because the Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, is in Cancer. And so I will talk a little bit more about that in particular a little bit later. But for most of you, you already know that the questions that I pose in my videos, you can access them, via my website. If you're a member of my online community, I post my weekly forecasts every Sunday evening. So you can get access to the new moon questions after June 10th in the evening. And please make sure that you're logged into your membership account via the My Account tab before you go to the My Content tab inside your membership portal. And that's where you will find the weekly forecast for this week of the new moon. And then you just go to the to where the day of the new moon, June 13th. Right? Now, if you want to have access to the new moon questions via my weekly forecasts and to the members only full moon videos every month, then feel free to join us, join the online community that I've just recently created. Because we're still improving the membership functions on this fairly new online community, the most basic level of membership is still available for the price of a cappuccino, and that's a big discount from what I normally would charge. And there's other membership levels available at an incredible discount as well. So feel free to check all of that out on my website at astrologercoach.com. You can either sign up for membership via the homepage or via the membership page. Now back to the new moon. Since the spiritual goal of Gemini is the development of perception, thought, and communication, we are invited to become aware of all the new connections that are created in our brain with each thought or memory that we're thinking about or that we're accessing, right? So the more we think about a particular thought or recall a particular memory, the deeper those pathways become, right? So again, if we get attached to a particular thought or a particular memory, then we tend to curve that particular image or that particular feeling that's connected with that memory or with that thought in our brain, in our patterns, right? So there's a pattern or groove that gets created when we do that. So what you want to ask yourself here is, what mental paths do I keep heading down, even though I know I don't need to go there anymore? And where do thoughts based on my desire for emotional safety drown out the intuitive voice that knows how I could nurture myself? These are some very powerful questions. And just remember, with my questions, you don't have to answer them right away. You can meditate on them. You can journal with these questions. You can just have them in the back of your mind for the next 4 weeks to see which question comes up more for you than other questions. See what answers come to you rather than trying to find the answers. Allow the answers to come to you as you move through the new moon cycle, so those 28 days. And then also, you don't have to engage with every single question that I pose. If something resonates more with you, feel free to use those questions in your daily practice, meditation or journaling, or just being with that question, and leave the rest. Now, Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, as I mentioned already, is in Cancer at the time of the new moon. And this is important because that, of course, then resonates in a very different way with this new moon chart. So this really invites us to tap into our emotional intelligence and learn about what we need to feel nurtured and connected to in life on an emotional level. So when it comes to learning, for example, we prefer a much gentler, more intuitive approach. We learn best when we feel rested, when we feel loved, when we feel well fed. All those Cancerian nurturing qualities. And we simply process information better when we can personalize it and connect it to what feels familiar or how we can help others or ourselves in life, right? So when there's a helping component, which is very Cancerian, then we tend to learn better. And we'll likely find ourselves asking quite a bit, is this going to help me or others feel safe, nurtured, or connected? So that's kind of our learning process in the next 28 days. Now, Mercury in Cancer also makes a mutual reception with the moon in Gemini. So that means that the planets are in each other's sign. The moon belongs to Cancer, Mercury belongs to Gemini, but the moon is in Gemini and Mercury is in Cancer. So they're in each other's sign at the time of the new moon. And so therefore they support each other's agenda. So we seek out the mental stimulation, right? Moon in Gemini, sharing, teaching, learning, writing, etc. And we want to feel an emotional connection as we're doing all of this, Mercury in Cancer. So helping others or receiving support is on the top of our list with that mutual reception. And then also our need for safety and what feels familiar may keep us from exploring outside of what we already know. And we may feel quite sensitive or take things maybe a little bit personally during this time. So as best as you can, nurture yourself, focus on things that support your emotional well-being in all areas of your life. And of course, most of all, be kind to yourself. Take baby steps, right? This is stuff that we talk about quite frequently, quite often. And, also move outside of your comfort zone slowly. If you feel that you need to stretch yourself in some way, or if you need to explore new things about life or yourself, go at it slowly. There's no need to rush. There's no need to move out of your comfort zone fast or to go all the way. Just take those little baby steps. Now ask yourself here, what might I discover about my motivations if I allowed myself to feel 5% more vulnerable? And this is a very important question because, of course, for most of us, it doesn't always feel comfortable to feel vulnerable. Especially if you've had trauma in the past, especially if you've been conditioned into believing that vulnerability is bad, that it's not a good thing. But vulnerability really helps us to connect with other people. It helps us to feel an emotional connection. So this is a very important question to sit with and be with and meditate on, right? What might I discover about my motivations if I allowed myself to feel 5% more vulnerable? And what if I consciously chose to nurture the parts of me that are sensitive, soft, and receptive? And this is another really fantastic question, I think, because how often do we really consciously choose to nurture the parts of ourselves that are sensitive, soft, and receptive, right? How often do we really do that consciously? We might do it once in a while, but, the conditioning that we often enjoy in the Western world doesn't really give us permission to nurture those parts of ourselves, right? So what if I consciously chose to nurture the parts of me that are sensitive, soft, and receptive? And what might plenty of rest and affection do for me? And that's always a big one, I think, especially in the world that we live in right now, where there's so much focus on accomplishment and, learning and doing and, there's a lot of pressures on us. There's a lot that's happening simultaneously, with the technology and everything. We're constantly on the go, in the know, and, constantly engaged with something or someone. And so getting plenty of rest and affection is something that's not a given, in every month or on every day, right? So what might plenty of rest and affection do for me? And then another thing worth mentioning is that Mercury in Cancer also is part of a T-square in this new moon chart. And this is important because, of course, that means that there is some tension connected with this Mercury placement. And the T-square is connected to Chiron in Aries, which is the focus planet of this T-square, and Saturn in Capricorn, which is opposing Mercury in Cancer at the time of the new moon. So this creates some tension, like I said, and it invites us to do some more healing and to have some, to somehow clarify our priorities, to get really clear on what is really important to us and what are we going after first and what's secondary, right? So we may feel anxious or stressed by a situation or an interaction with family or something to do with the home or real estate because, Mercury is in Cancer. But it is a time where we want to be aware of our reactions and triggers, right? Because Chiron in Aries is the focus point of this T-square. So there is a sort of a reactiveness or triggeredness that can happen with this T-square. Our mind may be influenced by how we're feeling about a certain situation or how we felt about that situation in the past. Could be something connected to past wounding, past issues coming back up. And we could have some insecurities or feelings of shame show up. So pay attention to whether that's something that's showing up in your life. And very often, when it comes to insecurities and shame, we're not usually very keen to feel these types of feelings. So we tend to usually ignore it or suppress it or react to life so that we don't have to feel the insecurity and the shame. And that can sometimes, the reaction can be one of anger. So just pay attention when you're reacting in anger. Is that maybe really connected to another feeling that's below the surface that might be connected to insecurity or feeling ashamed in some way about something? And also remember that this feeling of insecurity and shame is usually connected to something from the past. It's not usually connected to something that's actually happening in the here and now. And that's why it's sometimes so hard to be aware of these feelings and to connect and have access to what that really is in a conscious way. So just allow yourself to pay attention to that a little bit if that shows up for you. Now ask yourself, what calls for a compassionate approach and understanding when it comes to my relationship to myself, to others, and to the world in general, right? Because we're engaging all the time, right? Whether that's in person or via our technological tools that we have access to, we're always engaging, with ourselves, with others, with the world. So, and also ask yourself, what might a balanced approach look like, or how might it serve me to have a balanced approach, right? Now, as best as you can, bring a caring approach rather than an overly critical and perfectionistic one, right? Because Saturn is in Capricorn opposing Mercury in Cancer, and that can bring up some overly critical or perfectionistic thinking, or being pessimistic in some way. So just pay attention to that and see, how can I have a more caring approach, a more compassionate approach to myself. Now ask yourself here, how might relaxing my mind's memory module, right? So just going into this memory place, how might that open up the unconventional ways of thinking that can impact my healing process? Now, this is a very important question because, with Chiron being the focus point of this T-square, it's all about our healing process, really, isn't it? But we need to, in order to really heal, we need to tap into some unconventional thinking. And we need to allow ourselves to release or let go of some of the memories and some of the past issues that are currently showing up, that are triggering us, right? So how might relaxing my mind's memory module and opening up to unconventional ways of thinking impact my healing process? Great question. And what if I simply granted myself permission to go beyond what was? Also, really powerful question. Now, as I already mentioned earlier, this new moon chart also has 2 stationing planets, right? And both of these planets are slowing down to prepare to come to a halt and start their retrograde phases. The first one to start its retrograde phase is going to be Neptune in Pisces on June 18th. And the preparing for that retrograde, preparing for that coming to a halt and starting the retrograde phase is what's called the station phase, right? And so as the planet is still moving slowly, that amplifies the call to releasing whatever is no longer in our best interest in connection to our energy body. Now, Neptune's energy is very strong at the time of the station phase. And so we're really experiencing the higher and lower vibration of this planet, and it becomes very clear to us what they are. So it's kind of in our face, right? And this awareness really helps us to connect more fully to those energies as they are already inside of us. So we're kind of creating more awareness of like, where are we operating on a more higher vibrational level, and where are we operating on a more lower vibrational level when it comes to the Neptune energy. So we can see where we either need to embrace these energies more fully on a higher level, or connect to them in a more healthy way, so that we kind of don't get stuck in the lower vibration, so that we don't necessarily get lost, in those lower vibrational energies of Neptune, which include, escapism, addiction, denial, illusions. So one of the things that you can ask yourself here with the Neptune station is, what is my relationship to my own imagination? How do I use it? How do I use my imagination? How do I use visualization, for example, right? And do I tend to imagine worst case scenarios, or do I visualize what I wish to create, right? And that's important to kind of be aware, conscious and aware of. Then the other thing you can ask yourself is, what is my relationship to intuition, right? Neptune is very much connected to intuition. If I get quiet enough, can I catch the subtle voice of that intuition within me? And when I hear it, can I take that moment to catch what it is and says to me, and then trust it? Can I trust my own intuition? And who has the last word? My mind or my heart? And so as best as you can, simply observe, what comes up when you hear these questions. This is not about doing something the right way or the wrong way, right? This is really simply a way to be more aware of how we are connecting to this energy. And being able to be aware is a beautiful thing, because once we're aware, we can start to open ourselves up to how we're moving with this. And then the opening up to it will create a shift by itself. There's nothing really we have to do. We just need to embrace it, in a sense, right? So, and that's what the station phases are for, right? They create that awareness. And during the Neptune retrograde phase, we will get a chance to connect to that energy from within in such a way that we can feel its vibration internally, and we can work with it from the inside out, right? Now, for a more detailed description of the Neptune station phases, feel free to read my weekly forecast entry for June 8th. And if you're not yet have access to my weekly forecast, feel free to join my online community. Like I mentioned earlier already, you can sign up at astrologercoach.com via the homepage or the membership page. All right. Now, the second planet that starts its retrograde phase is Mars in Aquarius on June 26th. And the station phase that starts already way before then may bring up frustration or even outright anger. So we may want to detach from our anger for a fear of losing our direction or our connection to those who share our ideals and visions. But it is best that we slow down with the station phase, that we get present, and that we allow whatever needs to be unfolding to unfold right now. Because one thing is for sure, that we will make progress eventually, because there's a very strong desire for progress, right, with Mars in Aquarius. So we will make progress eventually. It's just a matter of time. Timing is everything. And with Mars stationing to go retrograde, we have to remember that maybe the timing is not exactly right now to make huge progress, right? There's definitely going to be progress, just not in a huge way. So ask yourself, if I were to be really, really honest with myself, would I say that the timing is right now with whatever it is that I'm, visualizing for my future? And what needs to happen before I can move forward with my vision and my dream? What needs to happen before I can fully throttle forward, right? Before I can step on the gas fully, right? And so for a more in-depth look into the Mars station and the retrograde phases in connection with your own birth chart, feel free to watch our last forecasting forum, either again, if you've already seen it, or watch it if you haven't seen it yet. If you're already a star or superstar member on my site, check your email for the link of the webinar. I sent it out on May 31st. If you're not a member yet, feel free to purchase the webinar on my webinar page on the website. Okay, that's available. If you have difficulty finding the webinar page, I think you have to go to the services page first, and then on the services page will be the webinar page, and then you can click on the Mars station and retrograde webinar and then purchase it from there. Now, the Mars is also not just stationing, but it's also aligning with the South Node at the time of the station phase, which is also something we talk about in the forum, in the webinar. And I also talk about that in more detail in the weekly forecast on June 7th. So feel free to read about that there. But ask yourself, with that Mars South Node alignment, what if I allowed myself to be both different and connected? And this is an important question, because sometimes we think that being different means we can't connect with others. And that's not true. It's actually, being different is a gift. It's an add-on to the relationship that we have with other people. If we were all exactly the same, life would get very boring very quickly, and nothing new could ever be created. Because if everybody was exactly the same, we would all create exactly the same stuff. So what if I allowed myself to be both different and connected? And what small or large action steps might uplift the future, both for the collective and myself? And remember, small or large action steps are definitely the way to go right now with Mars stationing, right? We might not be able to do huge stuff right now, but we can definitely take small steps. So to sum it all up for this new moon, we are reminded of the importance of clear, honest, and heartfelt communication, right? Mercury in Cancer, with ourselves and with other people. And all new moons are good times to turn inward, to reflect where we are and where we want to go. And this new moon is definitely that. We are invited to go within this month, with all these planets, starting their retrograde phases. And with some other planets already being retrograde. There's a lot of retrograde motion going on this month coming up, right? So we're definitely being invited to go within. That's what the retrograde is it's an accessing of these energies from the inside out, trusting our intuitiveness around a lot of stuff that's going on right now. So even though this may not be the right time to move things forward fast, right? This is a great time for preparing ourselves and being more aware and conscious of what's needed so we can get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow eventually. So as best as you can, just remain curious, open-minded, and adaptable for the next 28 days. And really remember that being adaptable is very powerful. Being flexible, being adaptable is very powerful. So ask yourself, am I just my mind, or am I more than that? And if I'm more than just my mind, what is beyond the mind? And these two questions are very powerful because this is not a questions that you want to ask from your conditioned mind or from your rational mind. This is a question you really want to ask from your heart, right? Because there is sort of like a need to really open up your peripheral vision in order to let these questions be, right? So do your best to do that when you ask these questions. And then also ask yourself, what might I discover if I heard the feeling tone of my inner dialogue and not just the wording? What if I heard the feeling tone and not just the wording of my inner dialogue? And does it perhaps point towards what is missing for me? The feeling tone, right? Because a lot of times, feelings will be the information that we need in order to see if we are on the right path. Do we need to make adjustments here? Or are we really feeling in alignment with where we're going? And some other questions you can ask yourself. How full or empty is my cup? Right? Because, very often, we either feel like we're like, yeah, I'm feeling fully energized and I'm good and I'm ready to tackle life, right? And then other times we're like, I am exhausted. Like I can't handle one more thing, right? So ask yourself, how full or empty is my cup? And what does receiving look like for me? Because in order for us to really replenish our cup, in order to really fill up our cup, we need to be capable of receiving, whether that's from ourselves or from other people. We need to be able to receive. So how does receiving look like for me? What does that look like for me? And what do I still need to release to be ready to receive my future? And this is a fantastic question in relationship to the Mars station, right? What do I still need to release to be ready to receive my future? What internal healing process must be completed? Chiron in Aries, Mars stationing, right? It's all connected with each other. So these last two questions I think are really, really powerful as well, because this is going to be part of the signature of this month. What do I need to still release to be ready to receive my future, and what internal healing process must be completed? Now, if you do have an ascendant, career point, or personal planets in 20 to 25 degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, then this new moon is definitely going to feel more impactful to you. But even if you don't have personal planets in those degrees and signs, look at the house placement where the new moon takes place in your own birth chart, right? So that's equally as important, the house placement of that. So which area of your life needs your attention for the next 28 days, right? Look to see, where is 23 degrees of Gemini? Where does that land in my own birth chart? And what does that house or area of life represent? Wherever it lands in your birth chart, look to see what does that house signify, right? Where am I invited to look at my thinking patterns there, right? Or my conditioning there. Now, if you don't have your own birth chart, or you don't know how to look that up in your birth chart, feel free to watch my video, How to Read Your Birth Chart. Towards the end of that 30-minute class, I will let you know how to get a visual of your own birth chart for free online. It's not something I'm sending to you. It's just something that you can get yourself online for free. And you will learn how to apply what I share in my videos and my weekly forecasts to your own birth chart as well in that video. So it's a really great video to watch if you haven't seen it yet. It's also a great video to watch if you want to join the monthly forecasting forums, because it's sort of like a basis, to knowing how to interact with us during the monthly forecasting forums. So you get more out of it, right? And feel free to watch this video either on my YouTube channel or on my homepage. On my homepage on the website at astrologercoach.com, look for free class, which if you have to scroll down a little bit on the homepage and then click on free class, and that will get you to the page on my website that has that video available for free. All right. Now, if you have been thinking about joining the monthly forecasting forums, let me, definitely watch that video as well. But also let me tell you a little bit about the monthly forecasting forums before we talk about intention settings. One of the things that I want to mention is that we're going to enter eclipse season in early July. And Chiron, the wounded healer, will be stationing and going retrograde in late June, early July as well. So to get ready for this potent time, I advise you to join us for the next forecasting forum on June 28th at 3 p.m. New York time, 8 p.m. London time. These forecasting forums are really great because you get a chance to actually connect what I'm talking about in my videos with your own birth chart. So it's really great to get sort of like an idea of like, how is this impacting me personally, right? And eclipses, of course, are a very powerful time because the soul's journey that we're on collectively right now, and also on a personal level, is getting triggered by eclipses, right? So this is a very powerful time, so I really advise you to join me if you can. If you're not able to join live, feel free to join, to register and get the video presentation of the webinar. These are also can be very powerful, especially since you can ask questions in advance, and I will do my best to answer everybody's questions at the end of the webinar. Now, to access the forums each month, you can either sign up for Star or Superstar membership. That it's included for free in those two memberships every month. Or if you don't want to access it every month, you just want to join once in a while, feel free to register on my website at astrologercoach.com. You can do that on the homepage. You can register there. There's a countdown to my forums, and you can just click on register there. If you are a universal member, please know that you can switch to any of the other memberships at any point via the online membership portal. You can always switch to other memberships. Even if you're a Star or a Superstar member already, you can also switch memberships. So pretty much everything can be done via your personal account on my site. And if you're not sure how to do this, just email us at info@astrologercoach.com, and my assistant will send you a short video that explains all the membership functions. Okay, if you're kind of confused and you're like, I don't quite know how to do that, watch that video and everything is going to be clear at that point. Okay, I promise. Now, if you're not able to join live, like I said, you can ask questions in advance. I do want to invite people to ask questions that are related to what we cover in the webinar, because that's most valuable to everybody. So basically for this webinar, ask about the Chiron station and retrograde phases in Aries, and ask about the solar eclipse in Cancer, or any questions about eclipses in general, right? You can ask about. Now, let's talk about the new moon intentions, right? Because that's something that's important. We want to know when is the best and most potent time to set our intentions for this new moon cycle. Now, the best time to set intentions is right after the new moon becomes exact, but we want to avoid moon void of course phases. And the reason for that is that the moon void of course is a very creative time, and it's more of a time for self-nurturing. And when we set intentions, it's usually about wanting something to manifest, right? We want to manifest something with our intentions. And that's not usually best to do during a moon void of course phase, right? Because it won't catch hold during the moon void of course phase. So since this particular new moon is also the beginning of a moon void of course phase, you want to wait 12 hours until the moon moves into the next sign, which will be in Cancer, before you set new moon intentions. Okay, so this is very, very important because this is different from what it normally would be. So once the moon void of course is over, you have 24 hours to write some powerful intentions for this lunar month. And so the best time and the most potent time will be between 3:20 a.m. very early in the morning on June 14th until 12:18 p.m. early afternoon on June 15th. And all of that is New York time. Okay, so Eastern time in the US, New York time. If you live in a different time zone other than the US East Coast time, feel free to join my Facebook fan page or my Twitter page, because I will be posting several reminders starting on June 14th early in the morning until June 15th early afternoon. And throughout that time, throughout those 21 hours, I will be posting reminders, and when you see those reminders pop up, okay, now it's time to set my intentions, and then you don't have to do the time conversion for yourself. But you can also, of course, find the time conversions online if you want to do that as well. They're there are places to go if you want to Google that, right? Now, for more information about setting new moon intentions, go to my Facebook fan page and check out the notes sections from your computer. They can be accessed only via the computer. Unfortunately, right now that function is not available via iPhone or Android. I'm not sure why. Or if you don't want to do this from your computer, or you don't have a computer readily accessible, you can go to my website. You go to my blog page on the website and then look for astrology articles. And then, read up on new moon intentions. Again, all the questions from this video are also available for everyone who's a member on my online community via the website, via your membership portal. If you go to the weekly forecast of that week, at the very bottom of the home page, you can access the weekly forecast, or on the blog page, or via my content tab on your membership portal. So there are many ways to access it. Just make sure you're signed into your membership page, membership account, and you can get all the questions in writing there. And if you want to have access to the new moon and full moon questions each month via the weekly forecasts, and if you also want to have access to the members only full moon videos each month, feel free to join us. You can also sign up for my monthly newsletter that goes out once a month, obviously, via my homepage on the website at astrologercoach.com, or you can email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. And these monthly newsletters are basically include my new moon videos. There's announcements for anything that I do in terms of like my monthly forecasting forums, or any courses that I offer, or any special offers that I have that month. So anything like that is going to be inside the monthly newsletter. Okay. All right. Now, this is it for the new moon. If you have any general questions, feel free to email me at sonja@astrologercoach.com. I'm happy to answer general questions there. If you have personal questions that involve me needing to pull up your birth chart, I will ask you to book a reading with me just to honor my time and make sure I can answer your question fully and completely. You can book readings at astrologercoach.com via the services page, or also on the home page you will find a tab that says, one-on-one sessions with Sonja. You can also ask questions that are connected to what's coming up within the next 30 days or 30 or 40 days when you join the monthly forecasting forum. So feel free to do it that way as well. That's less expensive than booking a reading, obviously. So all of that is available. So feel free to do whatever works for you, and have a fantastic new moon. And remember, it's an introverted time. So go within and get quiet with yourself and tune into the energies and see what needs to be seeded for the new month. That's it. And this is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.